Nai e punawai ke kaui kahano ano ano vale hovai kiki e hom hai kama popo pono pono mai kai kai Aloha, 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 aloha.
Thank you. Okay. And then she's going to do it. I'm going to do it. Okay. I'll do it. I'm going to actually read your bio, so sorry. Do you mind? Okay. I usually stand, but I think I'll sit. Thank you all for coming to this presidential plenary. Our panel today is a discussion among practitioners of Aloha Aina, taking care of the land collectively, well, and seas and water and sky. Collectively, their work highlights how Aina, which is usually translated as land, but actually means that which feeds. As we heard from Kamana Beamer yesterday, has intimate and ethical relationships with humans and their knowledge frameworks. So first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Joan Fujimura. I was past president of 4S, and I asked at that time that we have this conference here in Hawaii. I was born on Kauai and raised on Kauai and left for school, and now I'm back. So I know a generation of people that is very different than the generation now. And people were not divided, and they were, and you know, my mom knew everybody and they knew everybody. And so it was really a different time. Since then, you know, I mean, it's like I know so little Hawaiian compared to my mom. So I'm hoping that things are changing, and I think they are, based on, well, you three and Kamana's talk yesterday, which was beautiful. So this is a very special meeting to me. I know that there's been some discussion about whether we should hold the meeting in Hawaii or not, and I think we should, but that we can have that discussion later. So these amazing speakers are Manulani Aluli Meyer, and she's a highly respected theorist of indigenous epistemology. She's the fifth daughter of Emma Aluli and Harry Meyer, and grew up on the sands of Mokapu and Kailua Beach on this island. The Aluli Ohana is a large and diverse group of scholar activists dedicated to Hawaiian education, justice, land reclamation, law, health, and cultural revitalization, arts education, prison reform, food sovereignty, transformational economics, and music. So Professor Aluli Meyer obtained her doctorate in philosophy of education from Harvard. She's a worldwide keynote speaker, writer, international wilderness education, coaching, experiential learning, and she's been an instructor for Outward Bound, a coach for Special Olympics, and a cheerleader for the Hawaii Charter School movement. Dr. Meyer has been an associate professor of education at the University of Hawaii, Hilo, I know I'm supposed to say Hawaii, but, and spent 5 years in New Zealand as the head, oh, that's your comrade, as the lead designer teacher of He Wapaka Hiringa, an innovative master's in applied indigenous knowledge degree at Te Vananga o Aotearoa. Sorry about that. The largest Maori university with 30,000 students. Dr. Meyer is currently the konohiki for Kulana o Kapolei in West Oahu. Mehana Vaughn is a scholar who researches Indigenous Natural Resource Management. Professor Vaughn grew up in Namahana and Kalihiwai, Kauai. She studied sociology and secondary education at Harvard University. After a decade of teaching middle school in Hawaiian charter schools, developing Aina-based education programs on Kauai, those lucky kids, and training teachers in culturally grounded education, Professor Vaughn returned to school herself to pursue a doctorate in environmental studies at Stanford University. She's an associate professor at the University of Hawaii and in Manoa, and in the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management and the UHC Grant College program. Her research, teaching, and cultural focus on understanding and nurturing community care and governance of land and waters in Hawaii. So this is just beautiful research. Malia Akutagawa, who is on our screen there, is an associate professor of law and Hawaiian studies with both the University of Hawaii at Manoa and Hawaii Nui Akea School of Hawaiian Knowledge. At the School of Law.
Yes.
I should take classes. Professor Akutagawa earned her JD and environmental law certificate at the Richardson School of Law here and was admitted into the State Bar Association in 1998. Her scholarship includes state and federal laws, protecting iwi kupuna, preserving cultural and historic sites, and engaging Native communities and stakeholders in consultation on these matters. She is also involved in community-based resource management efforts along traditional land divisions, the ahupua'a, and district, regional, or moku levels within the context of state watershed and management partnerships, and community-based subsistence fishing areas. She is particularly interested in the integration of Indigenous Hawaiian methodologies, customary law, and governance principles founded by the ancient Aha Kiole and incorporated into law under the statewide Ahamoku Advisory Committee. She is part of Hui Aina Momona, a consortium of scholars throughout the university community charged with addressing compelling issues of Indigenous Hawaiian knowledge and practices, including the legal regime and Native Hawaiian rights associated with Ma'alama Aina, with focus on cross-disciplinary solutions to natural and cultural resource management, sustainability, and food security. This association is highly interdisciplinary, highly international, and so I'm sure everybody is so excited to listen to you. So we talked at the beginning over email about how we were going to run this. I sent questions, they sent answers back saying, no, we've got this. And so what we decided to do is, instead of starting with my questions, they're going to start with their stories, statements, whatever. And they welcome questions and interruptions during the process. I feel totally inept at actually trying to guide them. So I said,
We're unguidable.
Okay, we're letting you run. So
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you so much for coming.
So ano ai me ke aloha kākou. I first want to say thank you so much for coming. We're so honored to be here. We're so happy to be here together. I also want to say how in awe I am of this group. I stayed up way too late last night reading your program, which is massive. You have para conferences, you have making and doing spaces. I want to be at all of them. And I also want to thank you for working on putting, the ethics and the values into science and technologies at a time when we really need them, and we need them wrapped in values. We're going to have so much fun today. Manu and I met at Harvard when she was doing her PhD and I was doing an undergrad, even though our grandmothers were friends, so we knew of each other. Malia and I and Kamana, who you've met, all teach together as part of Hui Aina Momona at UH. Malia and I are teaching together this semester. It's so much fun. She calls our class Mad Ninja Skills for Aloha Aina, and the students are teaching us every minute. But we wanted to start first, I started with an oli to honor this place, to honor all who go before us, and to ask that our words today bring flourishing and growth for all that lives, mountain to sea. And we just wanted to start with one oli altogether before we lunge into wherever this is meant to go. The oli will help us to know, because there are many words, but this chant asks for the right words, the words that may be hidden beneath, with the deeper meanings that may be what you need today, what our communities need, and our world needs in this time. And we always need guidance to find those. There's always a plan bigger than us. So, Mimi, you want to share about this oli?
Ehumai was first taught to us. It came from Mokuokeawe, Hawaii Island, Auntie Edith Kanakaole, her hula halau, halau kekuhi, and this is what they used to enter the halau. So, just like the ethics that's infusing into the evolution of your group and the evolution of science, we have to ask permission first. What Mehana did is prepare the room and thank the space in the Waikiki, but we're going to do this together. What we feel as Indigenous practitioners of Aloha Aina work and caring for our people is that when you ask permission, it's not really the form that matters, but the essence. Okay? So even if you guys don't know the words, you can hum with us. And the humming creates a resonance that is absolutely trans-empirical, I'll say that. You'll hear the words more and more as we develop an understanding of how to decolonize science, which we're not going to do. We're not going to do the polemic discourse of this is better than that. We're just going to talk about what we know. So the evolution is collective. What most people think Indigenous means is racial distinction, but actually it just is a synonym for continuity. So here are the lyrics. Thank you, Malia, for putting these lyrics on. And Mihana's going to teach you one thing, and then we're going to all stand, and we're going to do it together. But all you're asking is to be ready, to be open, to be available for the knowledge that's coming, that's already inside of you. Now our job is to ho'oma'e with it. Malama it, marama it, and enjoy the process with each of you. So, Mehana?
And I have to say, Manu's a great teacher to me, and she taught me this oli, I think 30 years ago, in Boston. No. It was January, it was freezing, my first January. I didn't know winter started then, I thought it was over by then. I was miserable, and there was this cultural survival performance, and there was a Hawaiian oli to open, and I was desperately homesick. So I went and I accosted her, and I had lei, and
changed my life.
Yeah, and actually, I'd never oli'd before. Manu taught me this in those times. So I just wanted to share with you these words. Everybody say, e ho mai.
E ho mai.
Beautiful, hanaho, e ho mai.
E ho mai.
Yeah, and that just means grant us. It's humbly. Mai in Hawaiian is let it come towards us versus aku, away. So any verb has direction, mai or aku. So we're just saying, let it come towards us, grant us. Careful, you don't want to say mai, you want to keep it mai. Yeah, so one more time, e ho mai.
E ho mai.
Good, and so if you want to join in that part of the oli, it just repeats 3 times. It goes like this. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai. Try. E ho mai, e ho mai. You're ready. Yeah. And for the other parts, you can hum along. If you know it, join in. And then when we get to that line, do it all together. Participate in whichever way you want. The whole thing will repeat 3 times. We ask you to stand. Everybody stand.
Mahalo nui for standing, everybody.
And at some point, we'll get the lights up here so you can see each other, but now you'll hear each other's voices. Just please bring with you your ancestors, the places you love, the family that lets you be here today.
Nice. E ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e o na mea una no e au o na mele e ho mai homai homai ka ike mai luna mai o nā mea huna no e au o nā mele homai 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 ka ike mai luna mai o nā mea huna no e au o nā mele homai 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 mahalo nui no homali Okay.
Mahalo. How beautiful to feel you all. Mahalo nui.
All right, how do you want to start this? Okay.
I think we're supposed to introduce ourselves, but Joan did that, so you
Yes.
go ahead and start.
Well, you can add.
No. These are my friends. I have to say, being up here is a Hawaiian for me. To have Malia, who's someone I absolutely love and adore, and who's also on her way, and she's already done it, but as a haku ho'oponopono, as one of our beloved facilitators of one of our healing processes called ho'oponopono, to use pono to get back to pono, to use truth to get back to truth. But Mehana is also a beloved, and I haven't seen you in so long. She's got 3 kids, and she travels from Kauai, and I remember you coming over to Aotearoa to visit, and it was a very special trip. You had to really grow in so many different ways in your life, and the fact that you're working with Malia. So first and foremost, I want you to know that we're friends. So conflict of interest has no real root in Hawaiian thinking, because you have to know each other well. And so because we live on islands and we're Pacific people, these women, we are going to not only deconstruct science, but we're going to reconstruct a living economy, a living understanding, because of the interests and the priorities that all of us share, that Joan happened to recognize and lift up. So I want to ask these guys, I want to ask you guys questions. What do you want to talk about today around this topic? Because it's a big topic, and you've spent both your lives on this. And so as you respond, I will try to situate it in an expansive epistemological framework, because that's my job, is to make complex ideas simple, and so that you all feel connected to it, because you are, and you're doing it now. So, Mehana, Malia, olu olu mai oe, olua, olu olu mai olua. What do you want to talk about in relationship to what knowledge means in relationship to your science and what you believe is science?
Ano ai me ke aloha kākou. As Joan said, Joan and I both come from the island of Kauai. We're the oldest island. We're sinking into the ocean, even as new land is being born on the other end of the chain, the oldest inhabited island. So there's a gentleness about us. We've never been conquered. I think, this is my home, Kalihiwai, which means the edge of the fresh water. I just share a few pictures briefly. My tutu is a lay maker. This is the next slide. I grew up listening to elders, listening to kupuna, especially my grandmother, my tutu here on the right. She taught us that any place you go makes a different lay. Any environment that you're in, any place that you see creates an entirely different lei, like we're wearing today, that can only be made from that place, only be made by certain hands, only be made with love. So I guess my hope for you is that you go home with a lei from this conference that is unique, only could be made by you and your experience here, and from this place, from Hawaii, and the interactions you've had in this place and time. I've been able to listen to elders all my life who live from the land and sea of our home, and to help us think about what are the responsibilities that come with being from a place and being of a place. and was able to write a book called Kaya Ulu, Gathering Tides, with stories from those elders, which is here. And so I think things I will share today are related to that, being from a community and how we live together in the bounds of our place and how we care for it. I just will show you one more picture. This is children. These are my children growing up over the years in our community makahiki ceremony. My children are on the bottom left. Now they're taller than me. This is a ceremony that we revived as a community. So I think that's a message for you, is that, you know, we here in Hawaii are reclaiming things. We are restoring things, practices of our ancestors, even as we adapt them, as you are all working to adapt in these times. This is something that we as a community, this is our harvest and our peace ceremony, our makahiki time that we are restoring. We began with this process in 2009, and every year we gather together to give the best of our harvest and thanks to our akua of rain, and to bring more harvest and to bring more rain and to bring more thanks. Matari'i. Yeah, so whatever I share today will be in the guise of metaphor and story, and I just wanted to share these few pictures of where I come from. And yeah, maybe these other two we can come back to, or I guess I'll just share really briefly so then we can just talk, and then turn it over to Malia. So this one, Anakala Edi Ka'anana, this is one of my great teachers, this next slide. And I noticed, you know, I wanted to talk today about land, sea, and sky and bring some stories of each with lessons that you might take away. But I also I noticed that your logo was about kuleana, and that was created just for this conference. So I just wanted to bring this elder, Anakala Edi Ka'anana, into the room here. He farmed kalo just up in Palolo Valley, Mauka of us, one ridge over, and also as a fisherman, grew up in Miloli'i. And I asked Anakala one day, what does kuleana mean to him? And I know you all have unique kuleana being here. And he said, not it's our rights and responsibilities. He said, it's that which is in your care. It is and I said, oh, you mean like, you know, historic lands your family's been given, kuleana. It's that's what you mean by lands. And he said, no, it's the land your ohana takes care of, because that's how we know who you are. If it's productive, if it's feeding people, if it's generating food, that's how we know who you are and what you're capable of. And that's how we know what we can trust you with. So it's that which is yours to take care of, whether that's land or a skill or a gift. And it's how you care for that and how you pass that on and how you use that to create abundance for others. So I wanted to just introduce that meaning of kuleana, because I think it will underpin some of the things that we're talking about. And I just wanted to, bring in some of the teachers in the room. And then the last slide I just wanted to show was this one, which is what a kipuka is. You learned in Hawaii about our colonization. You learned a lot about the history from Kamana, and we are very much still an occupied nation. Yet there are these amazing kipuka, like the spaces that many of you are going to work and visit. There are places where land is returning to us, and that forms like a kipuka in the lava here. You see how there's a little bit of forest surrounded by black lava that is taken over the entire landscape, but there's this remaining stand of forest, and it's going to reseed the rest of the lava. It's going to spread and cover it and bring abundance once again. So I think that's a bit of a metaphor for how we do work here in Hawaii, is that we're reclaiming spaces little by little, preparing ourselves, rebuilding our education systems, rebuilding our relationships, rebuilding our technologies, so that they can reseed more and more of the landscape. And then gradually, as we return to land and land returns to us, we will, be ready to be an independent nation once again. And I'll turn it over to Malia.
Aloha mai kākou. It's so wonderful to be on this panel with my dear sisters, Mehana and Manu, and I just treasure the times that Mehana and I, in our teaching together, we learned so much from each other, and it's such a joy to learn about each other's kipuka, these places where life continues to abound and thrive, even in the midst of uh, what we may be seen as destructive forces. This is lava that takes over the land, but always in that destruction, there's creation, and there's these stands of uh, these sort of oases where wells of knowledge exist, and so it's just wonderful to be, with my dear sisters who are kipuka unto themselves, and so exciting to be able to share with all of you the places that have shaped us, and guide us in all the work that we do, and in all the kuleana that we have. And so I come from the island of Molokai, and I'll just kind of show a little bit slides here. But one of my great teachers was Kumujan Ka'imikawa, the late Kumuhula. And he taught us things about our history on Molokai that helped us to form the Ahakiole, which is a governance system, indigenous governance system by which we, as an island, have been able to shape how law and policy and what happens on our island. How do we care for Aina? All of that kind of stems from some of these ancient principles that were shared with us from Kumujan Ka'imikawa and some of his halau members. But I think what is deeply embedded in us is this understanding of Aina, and that we are Aina is ancestral to us, it's family to us, and we have to care for it. We have that kuleana to care for it. And so one of the things that were shared with us in the work that we do was the realms by which our ancient Ahakiole people's councils cared for the land. And so it's looking at Wananuiakea from the highest vantage point of your land, looking out to sea. Kahakai Pepeao, the coastal strand, and all the living beings in this realm. Mauka is everything from the soil to the top of the mountain, and Muliwai are all the sources of fresh water. Levolani, everything in the sky, including the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars, the atmosphere, and the cycles by which these celestial bodies affect our life cycles and phases on Earth. Kanaka Honua, all the places where humans exist, but those resources per se are valued for their intrinsic worth, not just in the way that they serve humanity. And that knowledge itself is a resource that it's to be respected and maintained and managed properly. And ke'ihi'ihi are all the things that make a place sacred, and the different ceremonial protocols that we engage in to maintain that sanctity. Yeah.
Malia is paused. Say, there she is.
Can you hear me?
We lost you for a second, but you're back. Keep going. I was just saying how amazing to think of divisions of land that need to be governed, and the knowledge being part of that, and the people being part of it, and the knowledge holders. But go ahead, Malia. Kalamai.
And so the way that we make decisions as Kanaka is we look at the issue itself and we critically examine potential solutions and their likely effects on these realms that I just described. And always with keeping in mind that we have to honor the wisdom of our ancestors while addressing the needs of the present, establishing greater abundance for future generations. So that work certainly guides everything that I do as a law practitioner, as well as a Hawaiian studies professor and a person from Molokai, where I have great kuleana to maintain our traditional and customary lifestyle. So with that, I think I should stop.
So we sort of dodged your question. What do we want to talk about? But we did a little bit.
you didn't.
We
No,
shared a little bit where we're coming from, and we have ideas about that other part. But we'll turn back to you.
No, you answered it. You answered. Now, did you see how they answered it, though? The thing about native thinking is that it contextualizes the idea, because geography absolutely shapes our epistemology. So what I want to say about what they just said is that the knowledge systems are actually secured within the knowledge of the land, from within, from without, where you are at. It's like we're coming out as Aloha Aina practitioners. That is the center of how continuity is going to be maintained. Are you aware of the land that you're situated in, of the land and the names and how people grow? So geography is the large shaping process of knowledge systems, and that's new for most people. Most people think that you will see the same ocean as I see. That's not true. That's not true. Hey, you guys? We see the name, all of a sudden the kahakai changes because the kai moana, the moa gets more, and all the surfers are coming in, and then people from Kentucky are running into the ocean, like, brah, don't go in, because they think they see the same ocean. So we're introducing the concepts of cultural empiricism, cultural objectivity. It's not a negative to say that we differ. The thing about science and the inevitable evolution of science is that we have to be clear about how we differ, because the one truth epistemology is collapsing. The idea that context doesn't make a difference, everything that these two women are talking about is contextual. The fact that we're all living in cities and we think it's not valuable, that's our dilemma to fix. So continuity actually lies in the depth and the breadth of our knowing of site specificity context, not living in a vacuum. Science is no longer, if it's a vacuum, it's controlled, and if it's controlled, it's really about money. So as we deconstruct capitalism as an epistemology, we are going to reconstruct a sharing economy based on love of land and service to people. And this is what these two women represent. Love land, serve people. Oya vale. That's as simple. But did you see what Malia is talking about? 8 things for decision making? Wow. These are women talking, okay? The feminine principle is about communion. It's old. It's old. So feel the ancient understanding in your own knowing, and don't feel separate from the lucid ideas that they're summarizing. So keep going.
I think we could probably bring up lights a little bit, because we want to be able to see Malia, but we don't need to share any more pictures. And we do want to have questions from you as well. Manu, I think we're talking about worldview. What is science? What is indigenous science? Why is it needed in these times? What can Hawaii offer you to take home and use in your own places? How you can be an ally to Hawaii as you learn about our history. Those are some things I'd love to talk about today. Nice. I'm willing to go wherever. But I did want to say, I think what you shared was really important, because, and I'm grateful for what you do, because we act as if science and technology are neutral, are objective, are not attached to ethics and values systems, and thus trump all. And at the same time, there are systems and ways of knowing that are so needed in these times, and also are so dangerous in these times, which is why I really appreciate your work, and I'm grateful to learn from all of you. I wanted to just share one image that you may already have heard in Hawaii, because it's common, but we have a saying, he wa'a he moku he wa'a, right? And this brings together land, sea, sky, the themes of your conference. If you look at a picture of one of our navigating canoes, the ways we got here to Hawaii, the ways our Maori cousins got to Aotearoa. Our people are voyagers. The ocean connects us, doesn't divide us. But if you look at a picture of that canoe in the ocean from the sky, like Ho'okule'au that's been in Vancouver and San Francisco and is now starting home, it's this tiny little speck. You can barely find it in the photo, right? And when you look at the canoe from the ground, it looks big, but it's not. And it's on that ocean, that's the sea part. It's using the sky to find its way, using the stars, right? But it is the land. That's what we say. The canoe is an island. The island is a canoe. And all of the food and the water we have to survive is on that canoe. And all there will ever be is on that canoe. And that's how we live as island people. That's what we know. Everything we and our children need to live is here, and it's all there ever will be. So how do we live differently in these times with that realization? And that is our science, that is our value system, that is our training. And in these times with the challenges we're facing, we also need our own ancestral science, and we need new forms of science as well, and new tools. But those have to be wrapped in that realization, that understanding, that values. Those tools cannot go off on their own and just navigate the canoe. There has to be a vision too of where we go, because navigators don't just find an island, they see the island first. You have to see the island, you have to envision it, you have to know where you want to go, and then they pull it out of the ocean, right? So how we have those values, that awareness of our limited resources and how threatened they are, those values of how to care for them and how to adapt technologies and tools to do that, and also that vision of where we're headed.
Nice. Malia, do you have thoughts on that? Ike, e olu.
No, I just completely agree with it. And I think if we do understand that then we understand it's true sustainability. And for me too, I look at it in terms of abundance, and that is really it is a mana'o I received from my great grandmother, as it was reflected to me by Daviana McGregor, who listened to an interview of her by Mary Covena Pukui.
Nice.
The question was, how much fish is in the fish pond where that there's so much. She kind of said it in a real offhanded way, like, so much that you can kick them.
No need count. What's counting have to
Did
do
you
with
say you would kick them if you walk in the water?
it? Kick them. I choke. Yeah, we say choke in Hilo, you know what I mean? Now, the thing is, the over-reliance of a temporal, of a counting system that this world has been seduced by absolutely has produced what we have today, but it's not enough. We need something else. So we are not deconstructing science as reconstructing a worldview that is about continuity. So continuity is at its core, Aloha Aina, is at its core the concept of Ike. So when you go into indigenous thinking, there's always a higher frequency. There's na for us, which is to look, looking, but then there's Ike. And Ike is that higher frequency. Ike is to see. It connotes consciousness. Ike is to know, it connotes a type of knowledge because of experience. And Ike also means to be given revelations from the gods. Now, when that was produced in front of me in my dreams, my life changed. Like, what? One little word, Ike, means all those things. And pretty soon it was everywhere. It's everywhere. The idea that there's a physical, mental, and a transspatial reality in the world. There's a mana'o i'o, which is knowing, because it's i'o, it's inside of you, you've experienced, it's knowing. Mana'o lana is knowledge, it's floating, it's information. And then aloha, that is understanding, because when you understand something, you feel something, you change, you are enacting something. And Hirani Mokomi absolutely was a wonderful scholar, still is. He's a kupuna that is Linda Smith's father. Thank you so much. So there's 3 ways of doing Maori research: whānuitanga, outward; hohonutanga, inward; and ma'aramatanga, where it's effulgent. It's touching all things. And that ma'aramatanga, that ma'alamalama, that sense of enlightenment is where we must go, especially as AI is the product of our thinking. Don't be afraid of AI. It's helping us evolve, because we need to evolve now. And that is a tool. Don't disregard a tool, and don't fear a tool, because we have experienced, are you kidding? I would kill for a nail 300 years ago, because I know what iron does with stone. Kill. You know what I mean? Because we love change. Change that's effective, right? Do you guys still, if you're going to make a va'a, do you do it with a ko'i or you make it with the chainsaw? You know what I mean? Like, we make it with chainsaws. On a good day. The point is, use the tools well by evolving in a different frequency with your own consciousness. David Corton is a friend. He wrote, change the story, change the world. Our story is old. Our story is old, and it is inclusive. It's meant to be inclusive, because aloha is our true intelligence. You heard that yesterday from Kamana. I know you did, right? Because aloha love is the absolutely energetic field of expansion. So I feel like I'm coming out of the closet as someone that really, really loves the idea of loving, and really is an energy. So we are meant to evolve. And that's why 3 of us up here, you guys are this is really rare. You know what I mean? So what do you think of that?
I'm going to try to distill 2 things I heard you say. Manu always takes our people to the next level. The way she uses words, and so we always learn from you, and that's why it's such a joy to be here with you. And so one thing you said was Ike. And you talked about all the ways we know things, all the ways Hawaiians have knowledge. And you taught me this, that it's through our hands, it's through doing, it's through our relationship with place, it's through usefulness. What can I use this for? And as a teacher in middle school, I see that. That's what our kids, and that's what I did before coming to UH. They want to know, why am I learning this? What am I going to do this? And how does this connect to me, right? And when I was coming home, Manu and I were both coming home, and I was teaching, and I was starting to teach. We had classes for other Hawaiian immersion teachers. We were learning together, and you taught us Hawaiian science, this Hawaiian science class. And the first day she goes, okay, we're going to go surfing in Waikiki. We're going to learn the science of surfing. And that was such a, it's so real. You go the wrong way, you time it wrong, you pearl dive, and the board goes up in the air, and it's going to come down and conk you in the head, and you're going to get a concussion. You learn fast, and there's physics, and there's there's experientialness, and it's you learn instantly. You're feeling the wind is changing, the surf is changing, the current, the tide. And you're adapting all the time, and you're putting it into practice, and it's trial and error in real time, right? And it's a form of science and our ancestral understanding that is embedded in us, and we also have to learn again and again from our places. And once you get that break, canoes at Waikiki, okay, well, go to Pops, it's going to be totally different. Start over. But what knowledge is, what science is, that trial and error, that adjustment to place, that learning, that documenting either on a computer or on a spreadsheet or in your body. Malia always says, how do I remember things? I store them. I'm going to put this one in this shoulder. Then when I need it, it's right here. This is in my elbow. I'm going to call on it. So that kind of what knowledge is. The other thing I heard you say is use the tools. Use the tools. We need to be efficient. We're all mothers and we're all busy and we're all balancing and we're all, all of you, we're all sisters, daughters, doing all these kuleana. So we have to be efficient and we use the tools. What we were taught was wrap them in values. So one more example, then back to Malia, but this is from Anakala Eddie, who I showed you when he was going to carve a canoe for the school so that the kids could go out on the canoe and learn in that way and learn that science experientially. So it's in their body and they really know it. Yes, they were going to use a chainsaw to cut down that tree and to carve. And we're using invasive species now. Invasive species in our lay. We're eating invasive species. We're an island with the most invasives, the highest native species, and the most threatened, right? So we're going to eat those invasives, put them to use. So he's cutting down this huge invasive albizia to make a canoe. First cut is with the traditional adze, with the stone adze. First, there is pule, there is chant, there is blessing. We ask the tree, whether it's invasive or native. First cut is with the traditional tool. And then we bring in the chainsaws, right? And we think always about the purpose and we go slow. Because when we clear land with a bulldozer versus by hand, we can mess up really quickly. We just had restoration of a fish pond, one of the largest in Hawaii, that's been sleeping for hundreds of years. Alekoko fish pond 2 weekends ago. Many people hand to hand bringing rocks. The rocks were put there by excavators, right? But what parts do you do first by hand? What parts do you do with machine? Because when you work with land, it's complete, you have to pay attention, right? Other fish ponds, they do it all by hand. They don't want to do anything with machine. Different places, different choices, all with awareness, all wrapped in values as we use these new tools.
Malia, any thoughts right now?
A lot. I'm gonna just try and organize my thoughts better, but initially we were talking about Ike, and for me there's many ways of knowing. So Molokai is a very spiritual island, and in many ways I'm informed by my aina, by the things that I rely on for my subsistence, for my food. So I just want to kind of maybe share an example of how we utilize sometimes Ike Papalua, the sort of longer sight, a spiritual kind of divine kind of knowing. So I'm gonna just share this story about the deer, and to also kind of center us also that as Hawaiians we live and operate in a living culture. It's not a museum culture. So sometimes we may sound very esoteric, but I'm gonna try and ground us in how we deal with modern day conflicts and situations. And for me, what has become a major part of our diet is venison, but it's a introduced species, but it was introduced to us for about 200 years ago. So there was something that was going on a few years ago. A famine was happening and the deer were dying. And my father is a hunter, my brother is a hunter. We have many generations of hunters. And so I grew up eating deer, and it troubled me what the situation that was happening. There was so many deer dying from this drought. And then the deer visited me and opened my arm and said, "Ivi o ku'u ivi, bone of my bones, koko o koko, blood of my blood, pili kamo'o." Our histories are shared. You're, we are now embedded in your mo'oku ohau, in your genealogy. The blood that flows through you is our blood. And that was very profound for me to understand. And I had to do something in my community. I had to start holding meetings and helping to determine what do we do to bring the population down to a sustainable level. And what in the Kumulipo we talk about pairings. Yeah, usually you have a species that is on land and a species in sea, and they're like guardians of each other. And what the deer showed me was you worry about the reefs of Molokai because of our presence, that the soil is, eroding and going down into the ocean and covering the coral. And the coral polyp is the foundation of creation in our Hawaiian mo'opu'auhau, in our genealogy. And what the deer showed me is we're linked. If you care for us in a way that is responsible, then you will care also for the reef. And so part of the work I've done is in climate change. And we were speaking to the Molokai Hunting Club, which has played an integral role as community volunteer hunters that share meat with the community. And they're sort of our eyes and ears on the ground. And they were explaining to me what was happening to the deer population. But we also have treasured kupuna like Auntie Penny Martin, who makes lei and gathers in the forest. And she was saying there has to be a way that we can resolve this issue where we can maintain our forests and our ocean while still having deer. And so we talked about ways to do that. And she introduced this concept of the kipuka, as Mihana had explained. And so we had some student projects after taking traditional knowledge from our kupuna. We began to try and figure out how to capture that knowledge and look at it in terms of adapting to climate change. And so this is just one project of my students where they talked about these creating these kipuka on the landscape. They also looked at 3 different ahupua'a, and they studied the different place names of these ahupua'a, which could give an indication of what naturally grew in this area. So how can we restore it back to abundance? Then as I scroll down, you'll see a little bit more about the work they did, looking at ahupua'a, restoring our terrestrial systems, as well as our marine systems. But let me get down further. And this is that kipuka concept that Mihana explained earlier. What they did was they looked at native plants and pollinators that used to grow in this area, and then gave us a plant list so that we knew what to plant again. And then as we go down, one of the concepts that Auntie Penny described was to create a fence, small fence enclosures like tiny forests where the deer could walk around, but we could still begin to like renew our relationship with our native plants again. And these could be seed stock for additional forestry work that we do. So that's just one example of utilizing that traditional knowledge.
Okay, really quick. Malia Maikai. Can I comment on that, Malia? You know, you guys, what Malia just shared with you is really a fundamental philosophical truth that is really the cornerstone of indigenous epistemology, and that's mutual causality. So mutual causality is in quantum world, it's called complementarity. So usually, you know, people are like, oh, there's deers, let's just kill them. You know, like kill all of them. You know what I mean? So that ike moi, that moi uhane that you have, that dream that Malia has, are dreams that we all have. We share an understanding and a respect for the transspatial universe. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. No, because it's time. You've got to do some homework here. You do. Because we always have to explain ourselves. I'm tired because Darwin's theory was never correct. It never was. We just thought it was. Survival of the fittest is no longer appropriate for the world. It is called complementarity in certain circles, but for us, it is what Malia just explained. And that is, you see a situation like overpopulation of deer, you get a dream and you have to adapt. We have many words for different types of dreams. I get ulaleo, Malia. I get ulaleo. One ulaleo, this night voice says to me, stop counting the extinction of your species. Stop it. I wrote it down. Stop counting. When I was in Aotearoa at the, staying there, Mary, I woke up and it said, death doesn't limit us. Our thoughts on death limit us. So these ulaleo, these things matter to us because they are fundamental building blocks to how we're going to recover ourselves. We are not a dead culture. We look like this, but we're dynamically alive, encouraged by the chaos of these times to talk about the coherence that is inevitable in cultural activity and cultural acumen. It is inevitable that we have relationships with the trans-spatial world, with a world that cannot be measured, but it certainly can be experienced. And that's what these two ladies, and that's what I believe. So find out why what's his face, Darwin. No, and I mean it. There are many different ways that we are now introducing the concept of continuity. And what Malia and Mehana are just describing are key concepts to cultural objectivity, cultural empiricism, the temporal world that is here. We just don't recognize it because of our own professional acumen and because of what the science continually badgers us to see.
So we've been here, I think, for about an hour, and we have about 45 minutes left till 12:30. Is that right? So I would love to hear, questions from you all. Joan, you may have questions, the audience, what you're thinking. So I think we might, I see people starting to get up. I know people will find you. I'll say one thing as the first question's coming, listening to Manu, complementariality. I can't even say it, complementariness. But what Malia said also that, she talked about that forest where every species has a function, right? And they all together are holding each other up and the roots are reaching to each other and one is higher shade and one is ground cover and there's all the levels in between. And how do we build those sorts of systems, both human and ecological, where, when Anakala said kuleana, where everyone's your unique kuleana gift, skill that is yours to care for, has a function and everyone finds and flourishes in that function and that's abundance. Questions?
I'm not really tall enough. Okay. I would just love to hear more on this dream of stopping the count, but the world without measure, and maybe just to give you a little bit of peace with Darwin, that he also has a side of him that's co-involution in his backyard. But neo-Darwinism is coming back too, and it has to die again, possibly. But I'd like to hear you more on that dream, perhaps, and what stopping to count, or maybe not just counting, might do or undo.
Wonderful. And I see there's a few people, so maybe we'll take a few and address a few at a time. We'll take one more in the front and we'll bounce to that back microphone.
Thank you. So I come from the ancestral lands of the Ino, the Sissipaha, the Shikori, and the Okinichi, and their descendants. the Okanagan Band of Saponi Nation, what we now call Durham, North Carolina. I have a question about this idea of non-native peoples and the idea of becoming indigenous to place without moving into cultural appropriation. And I wonder if the panel could speak to that idea and what your thoughts are on how to do that appropriately.
Okay, wonderful. How about right there in the back? And we see you two in the front. Yep, that's you turning to the back door. Did you have a question? Yeah, you. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, how about you? You're also perfect. So we have one more and then we'll address all three. No, you're all taking questions. White shirts, got it. Okay. One more there and then we'll try.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kei te mea tika koutou. Kia ora, my beautiful friends. Kari moana
Kari
tēnei from
moana.
Aotearoa. I just wanted to mihi to you. I'm going to come and give you a kiss really soon. But my question really is around what can we do? I mean, being here is you're modeling how we do that. But my question for our schooling systems is how do we challenge the racist undertones of science education that says that our Indigenous knowledge is not equal to other dominant knowledge systems. So in 2021 in Aotearoa, we had professors of Auckland University write a letter to say mātauranga Māori is not science. And we say it's not science. It's much more than science could ever dream to be. However, it has a really, really important contribution to make to science education. However, it's often resisted in our classrooms amongst our educators. So I guess my question is, how do we encourage these beautiful stories that we're hearing to become the norm? How do we teach that science isn't an academic endeavor? Actually, you can't really truly embrace science without physically embracing that knowledge in the aina, in the oceans, in the sky. So my question is, other than have more of these panels, what can we do as educators in those spaces to share, I guess, the importance of making space and of unpacking some of those colonial legacies that we still have in science education? Mahalo.
Mahalo, kia ora. So we have three amazing questions. The universe without counting, the indigenization of people who are not native, and also the racism of science and how we combat that.
You hit it, go first.
You hit it first? Kari moana, we combat that everywhere we are, and we have to combat it. And first we name it, and you named it beautifully, and it still exists. And we carve out kipuka, safe spaces, wherever we can, where that's not the case. And we use them to show the beauty and to show the genius, because that becomes undeniable. And we reach out to each other. Manu cleared space for many of us young Hawaiian women academics, not so young anymore. We clear space for each other, we reach out, we hold hands. And many of you are in universities. So you look for it, and you look for where you can stand up and say, that is what that is. And you look for ways you can make safe spaces for students. Because what I find is our students are so far ahead of this in us. This is innate to them. They are not stuck in this debate over, is this indigenous science or Western science? Is it authentic? Is it, rigorous enough? Is it, they're beyond that. So I just try wherever I can to kick down doors for them, whether they're middle schoolers or kindergartners or PhD students. There's a wisdom there. And then you got to build them up. And both shelter them and make space, and also really nurture and love, so they can stand up to that too.
Malia, do you want to take the dream question? Tinking.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what more they wanted to know about the dream, so it was a little bit hard for me to hear.
Okay.
But I do want to maybe sort of address some of those other questions,
Nice.
and maybe together. or to just share another maybe Ike Papalua moment that kind of ties it all together. So one of the things that I had experienced was this question of where do uh, Native Hawaiians and Indigenous people overall fit uh, in terms of conversations and solutions for climate change. And initially, I was kind of stumped, but what I felt was an infusion of the aloha of my ancestors, my kupuna, coming into my being and showing me sort of the trajectory of the lessons I've learned throughout my life. One being about my great grandmother talking about there's so much fish that you can just grab with your hand and kick it with your feet. And I had never like I couldn't even perceive what that meant until one night I was just driving from uh, a wedding late at night, and I heard this really loud, cacophonous sound, and I was the only car on the road, and it's pitch black, and it didn't make sense why I was hearing something like a large arena of voices or being in a stadium where everyone's cheering. But my headlights caught a flash over this fish pond, this ancient fish pond, Kupeke fish pond, and I saw thousands of mullet spawning, and they were like earthworms. They were moving like this, and they were thrashing on the water
Fish.
loudly that it sounded like a huge crowd in an arena, and it flooded my senses. And then it made me understand that if this is what my great grandmother saw every day of her life, she would never hoard. She would always believe there was plenty. And that's why our kupuna would always say, come and eat. There's plenty. And then so when I was posed later on with that question of climate change, my kupuna reminded me of that experience I had and other experiences such as learning La'au Lapa'au, Hawaiian medicinal healing. And several of my teachers said the highest potency and concentration of medicine exists in that scraggly plant that's just hanging on for dear life on the edge of a cliff, getting buffeted by the elements. It's not the happy plant that is amidst all its friends that's getting a lot of water and sunlight and nutrients. And so when I was asked that question, I was standing on the edge of a cliff, a sea cliff, and my kupuna reminded me of what my different teachers had taught me. And they said, as an indigenous person, you are the seed that has to be planted. Even though there are few of you, the knowledge that you have is what will save the world. And so you just have to be who you are. And even if, as an indigenous person, you're experiencing so much trauma and so much resistance, it's like that hard seed coat. It needs to be scarified. It needs to be scratched. It needs to be stimulated, and then that first pula, that first shoot will emerge from that. And so I take that, I want to impart that mana'o to all of you, that even in these difficult spaces where your knowledge is not being valued, your traditions aren't being valued, you have to be who you are, and you will continue to plant those seeds throughout your life just by being who you are.
That's beautiful, Malia. Haina mai kapuana. Yeah, and we've been scarified with our schooling. Yeah, we have, and we've had to grow. But those three questions are all kind of the same questions differently. They're all, in my work in philosophy, the first question is, of course, I don't mean to say we shouldn't measure anything, absolutely not. Even Karl Popper said objectivity, subjectivity, but cultural was the third process. And that cultural is that quantum field, that post-quantum, that transspatial field, we have to be rigorous about the things that we can't measure, but that we know are there. And we have to grow up now. We have to grow up by recognizing the ancient ideas that come from a type of common sense that is driven by deep knowledge. We don't have the word science. We use words like kilo. Kilo is an awareness of what is around us because we have a relationship with it. So do you have a relationship with land, with coconut trees? I'm just planting coconut trees because, you know, coconuts, people, it's a liability here in Hawaii. It's an ornamental tree. People don't use, but everywhere else it's called the tree of life. How's that? So our occupiers, our colonizers absolutely took that knowledge away from us. So now we're reconstituting ourselves. The issue of cultural appropriation, absolutely. Now I call it radical collaboration. Because we got to have more fun with this. I don't want to badger people because they want to learn from us. I want to party with them. I want to, but you know what? But you got to let us be in charge. That's all. Just let us be in charge. And you know, when you guys are talking too much, if the non-native is talking too much, all you got to do is, tita, olu mai. Thanks for coming. No, because their skills are very distinct. I don't want to write a grant. You know what I mean? So the skill sets that people posit are completely, we have a term, and we have beautiful whakatoki, olelo no eao. One of my favorites is, hahai no kaua I ka ulu la'au. Plant a forest and the rains will come. That's science. But because we're introducing, Malia introduced Ike Papa Kolu, Ike Papa Lua, which is our word for like almost telepathy or intuition. And for me personally, Malia, it's about using the left and right hemispheres, Lua. But Ike Papa Kolu, my friend Pulama Kolia of Maui Nui Akama, is introducing to the world. And that is, from Auntie Pilahi Paki, that is, there are 3 ways to interpret ideas and knowledge. 1, ho'opukaku, which is the literal, which is the measurement. You know, you can measure things. 2, which is the kauna, which is the multiple of the metaphoric. And then 3, there's the noahuna. The noahuna is where we must be activated. And that is your own interpretation, your own experience. So hahai no ka'ui I ka ulu la'au means plant a forest and the rains will come. But for me, it means share purpose with others and transform the world. So people can say, oh, that's not what it means. I said, no, that's not what it means to you, but that's what it means to me. Because language, if language is not used to actually activate, motivate, you know, and badger, I mean, that's not the purpose. Badgering is not the purpose of language. Language is meant to inspire us, to include us, to engage us. Same thing with science. Science is not meant to be only replicable, to be based on, you know, power, control, and, you know, it's not. Science is the inside reflective process that helps evolution become inevitable. So why are we not describing science in a noahuna kind of way? In your own, my work is in epistemology, but it's been heading into hermeneutics for the last 10 years. And people basically say, shut up, Manu. Because hermeneutics is easier than, hermeneutics only means that there is an interpretation in the world that matters. Hermes, for us, is Maui. Hermes is that naughty little boy that interprets things differently. So now, let us reinterpret a different way of looking at even how we view. I mean, we know that when you look through a telescope, your worldview dictates what you see. We know this already. You know this. So why is it that we are not more proactive in understanding our own worldview that stimulates that type of seeing? Why are we not more rigorous about enduring thought patterns based on intimacy of knowing about place and people? Why are we not curious? Why are we not articulating these kind of debates in a way that's more inclusive? We're so busy trying to exclude people because, you know what I mean? Like, let's include people, but you gotta be, what Auntie Lynette teaches me all day long is aya ilokone. It is inside of you. That is the WIPSI. That is the WIPSI model, right? They say one thing, WIPSI, World Indigenous Peoples Conference in Education. Every 3 years, since 1983 or whatever, that's the same motto. Aya ilokone, the answers are within you. Now that is an energetic field that causes you to know yourself. And then the awamo kuleana can be activated. For us, awamo kuleana, the Noa Huna for that, is collective transformation to individual excellence. Because standardization has been the highest frequency of schooling, that's why America's dumbed down. We love standards, but standardization has dumbed us down, okay? It has dumbed us down. Standardization and the test that has been given to oppress our people is so oppressive. And you see it now all over America, dumbed down. And I mean it. We don't even have to, I don't talk like this at home. You know, we're busy planting, we're busy doing, we're busy healing and understanding our trauma. And this is what we all share, trauma, with how science has been overproduced in a one truth epistemology. It's time now to debate it rigorously, and women step in. And the feminine in you men step in. You can do it. We could do it together, because it is time to be more articulate about what the impact of our dreams mean to objective science. Absolutely, yes. Go into history of science. You'll understand how many of those revelations of scientific experiments actually came from dreams. You know this, and we all like poo-poo it like it's nothing. It's something. And we have words for that something. And let's evolve and not be afraid of AI as a tool. Let's evolve with our consciousness. And we could do it. That's it for me.
More questions. They, their, them step into, and we'll take more questions. I wanted to just add on to the second from our sister from Turtle Island really briefly, and mahalo, our questioners are here. Native and non-native, I don't find those labels helpful. Our people have many different words. They're all based on your kuleana or relationship to land. So, noho papa, someone who's lived there across generations. Oiwi, someone who has bones in that land, right? We're all native to somewhere. All of our ancestors come from somewhere, and we all are in a place. So connect to the place you're from, observe it, see how it's changing, ask for permission, know who the natives are of that place, know how you can uplift them, learn about your own ancestors and the places you're native from. But just the last thing, we have a great word, hoa aina. It's a friend of the land. It's one who's bound to the land, who knows it deeply and who's an advocate for it. Anyone can be a hoa aina in Hawaii, in a way that elevates all of us, oiwi, all of us whose ancestors come from here, in a way that elevates our fight and it doesn't take space, because we do need our own spaces, and kids do need their own spaces, so they're ready for what Kari Moana talked about, and we do need to be in the leadership roles, and people can make space for that in every way. Questions? Go ahead, sir, and go ahead, ma'am. Auntie, maybe we'll start with you and then we'll go here. Go ahead.
Watamuli, Birigaba, Bidra, Mayada. My name is Jackie. I'm an Aboriginal woman from Australia. Our bones have been in that country, the oldest living surviving culture on the planet, for 65,000 years. Last month, some of you might know, we had a referendum in our country whereby 60 to 70% of mostly white Australians voted us down to be included in our constitution of our country. We are the only Indigenous group on the planet who has not had our people included in our national constitution. Also with that came a voice to Parliament. It was merely a small ask, an advisory group that would talk to the Parliament about our issues. We've had 7 representative bodies before that, and on the last one I co-chaired the National Congress of Australia's First Peoples. But because we criticise government, we say, your policies are all wrong, your policies have never worked for our people. We want to have a say in that, but still we're voted down. Our people wanted it. Over 80% of our people said, yes, we want this constitution to reflect us and to give us a voice. Now, we won't see that. I certainly won't see that in my lifetime. We will leave it to the future generations to get us justice in our own country. My question to you, our sisters on the panel, and thank you very much for your presentations, they were brilliant and I'm so glad I'm here, is I need your guidance, your mana, your wisdom in terms of advice as to what we do next. Where do we go from here? We know that we can draw on our 65,000 years. We know that. But we learn globally as well. This is not lost. We will survive after those tens of thousands of years. So, my sisters, I ask for your wisdom in terms of taking messages back to my own people, especially our young ones who are just very aggrieved by this. And we'll have to do all the work that I and many have done for 40, 50 years. Watamuli, thank you.
Mahalo nui loa. I'm gonna go to the gentleman who's standing and then go ahead, yes, and then.
Hi, okay. I have 2 questions. One is related to a point that you made about inclusion. So I'm wondering, as a non-native person, like how we can contribute to that. I'm thinking, for instance, about feminist standpoint theory that looks at, how to basically interpret or react in any situation always from the standpoint of the most marginalized, which I'm wondering if that would profit, everyone else as well. And the second question is in terms of how you navigate your, let's say, life and gain knowledge, and what role different sensory experiences play in that, specifically smell. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the generosity of your abundant knowledge in this panel. My question is really for Malia, and I'm very curious about your legal work and how you think about law as a tool for enacting these philosophies, and in particular, how you think about the legal system or how we might reform the legal system, which currently privileges individuals over communities and privileges property rights over the lived and living world.
Malia, did you hear that?
One more question.
In Zoom?
In Zoom, okay.
So,
Yes, I heard.
hello, thank you so much for the amazing panel. To the amazing panel, I have a slightly provocative question. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Thank you so much for, to the amazing panel. I have a slightly provocative question. I've loved the discussions on ancestry, and I was wondering if you have articulations on what exactly the importance or significance of ancestry is. Is it knowledge? Can it be learned? Is it belonging? And can it be formed or found? Is it a necessary construction? And if so, how does it need continuous construction and maintenance?
Auntie, I'd like to start with your question from Australia, and I want to thank you for it. And I want to thank all of those around the world, Indigenous leaders. We have many in Hawaii who've given their lives and worked tirelessly for justice for our people in arenas that aren't ours, right? In governance systems that aren't ours. And that takes such fortitude and such sacrifice. And when it isn't realized in the times we hope, it's so hard. And you're heroes to us. And we see that sacrifice. And it allows us to dream. And in 1993, I was a senior in high school. We marched for the centennial of our overthrow of our Lili'uokalani. Kalani. And we thought, and my dad thought, that we would be an independent nation again in his lifetime. And he's passed, and now I wonder if it will be in my children's lifetime. And I have no idea what to do for your people, but I can just say a few thoughts that come to mind. One is that it's gonna happen. And that what happens in those official arenas is one thing. But what happens in the hearts and experiences of your children and in your communities is another. And that we do control. And so we've been working in the spheres we can control. And one of those things, the most important thing, is our relationship with land and our reconnection to land, where we can be sovereign on our lands. And you have vast spaces that I think only your people can navigate and know and survive in. We have these very small spaces, but yet we make sure our kids can have spaces to live free and to be and to know and to be caretakers of. I think we ask that people, other people, say again and again and again what the reality is for our people. Like, please leave Hawaii and say, I went to an occupied nation that again needs to be free. The people of Australia, the Aboriginals of that place, need to make choices for their lands and their place. Say that. Tell the story for all of us, and we tell the stories for each other. Tell that to buy land in Hawaii is a violence, and that that land at some point needs to be returned. Tell that that referendum went in the wrong direction. One of our kupuna who's worked for Native Hawaiian sovereignty for many years, she says there's two kinds of sovereignty for our people. We were an independent nation, all of Hawaii, the most literate nation in the world in the 1800s. And our queen chose, as Kamana shared with you, to abdicate temporarily under duress because she wanted us to survive as a people. And that's why we're here today. So it might not be my children's lifetime, maybe my grandchildren's, when all of Hawaii is an independent nation again. At the same time, we can have independent government within the structure of the US, as long as it's occupying us. So building those systems up, that's something we've been doing. And that's when not everyone in Australia gets to vote. Because if everyone in Hawaii votes, we lose. But we want to be inclusive. We want to, again, be a multiracial international nation with people descended from all over the world who are yet Hawaiian citizens. We're working for that. But in the meantime, we're building the nation where our people are the citizens and our people decide. And what does the structure look like of how we govern lands and how we relate to lands? And we try to do that every day in our families and in our lives and with our kids. And then we try to do it by holding hands and building governance structures at all of these different levels. And I don't know if that helps at all, but I really, really, really honor your work. And I know it will be fulfilled.
Yes, I should say something. You said it so eloquently, Mehama. So I think I only want to add a little bit more to it. It's when I look at what our kupuna faced, where there were epidemics that wiped out most of our population, and when I look at the incredible archives that we have, where our kupuna knew what was gonna happen, and so they told their mo'olelo, they told their stories to us so that one day, when we recovered our language and could begin to read their writings, we would have a template, we'd have a blueprint of how to return to ourselves, and rediscover what made us a proud nation and a beautiful, wise people with tremendous ike. When I look at my own life growing up on Molokai, we were fortunate to see what was happening on other islands, especially Oahu, which was getting very developed, and foreign interests coming in. And we refused to allow our island to be developed in that way. And it was through resistance, it was through marching, it was through, tying ourselves to bulldozers if we had to. And I had the benefit of being raised in the 1970s and seeing my parents, my makua generation, and my elders, my kupuna, just holding the line. Like they knew they had to hold the line and then make sure their children would be educated and return home. Uh, uh, understanding the Western frameworks, understanding these oppressive systems, and then begin to change it from within. So that is what my generation is doing, and the generation after me is doing, and we are achieving critical mass. So I wouldn't I would ask that you not have despair, but you find out ways that you can transmit that knowledge to your children today, because they will become the standard bearers if you implant that knowledge within them. And in terms of how I utilize the law is, again, there were certain things that our kingdom did in establishing Hawaiian custom as a framework by which the laws that we have in Hawaii today stand upon, such as the public trust, which is caring for our natural environment for current and future generations. And it's deeply embedded within our Hawaiian understandings that we are part of Aina. That public trust responsibility came from our king's understanding that he held the land in trust for the people, and that his authority came through the understanding that we are all parts of nature. We are nature also. That's what's underlying our constitutional protections of our natural environment. And I think in time we will reach the understanding of personhood of the natural realm. I think it's inevitable. It's going to get in that direction. Um, so, I utilize the law in a way to uphold traditional knowledge and life ways. And we have a body of jurisprudence of different cases that protect traditional and customary Hawaiian rights for access and for gathering. And now we're evolving in such a way that um, there is an understanding that Native Hawaiians also have a right to malama, to care for and steward those resources. And it's been maybe an uphill battle, but I'm here for the long game. I think for Indigenous people, we understand we gotta endure. We have, we're made of tough stuff. We know that. And so part of the things that I do is I train judges from the circuit court level all the way to the appellate courts to the Hawaii Supreme Court. I train environmental court judges and I explain the different laws that protect Native rights and the public trust. I train dole care officers, conservation officers who typically arrest Native Hawaiians in the middle of their act of doing malama aina, caring for the land. And I try to explain to them that is our right to do that. It's our constitutional right. So with education and in building up future attorneys and Native rights advocates, that's how I do my part, and that's how I utilize the law to break down these oppressive structures.
I just want to mention one other thing Malia does, and it's really amazing to watch and work with her on, is support communities all across Hawaii that are caring for lands and waters. And whether they're state lands and they have an agreement, or it's a private land, or they're just, there holding presence in a space where they may not officially be allowed to be, but they have responsibility to be. There's community groups all across Hawaii that are reasserting their rights to be in place as caretakers, as stewards, and that creates abundance for everyone. That makes things better for everyone because they're sources of food. Manu works a lot with Native food systems. When we have climate change disasters like the floods that hit our islands, these are the groups that give out food, that go door to door, and this comes to your question, is always being aware of those least fortunate, always being aware of the blessings that are present and then the challenges. So one of the things we do at the university is try to look at all these community groups. We come from those groups, we come from that upbringing and that work in our families, but now we say, who are these groups across Hawaii and who needs help? And how do we send students here and who has resources and who doesn't? So there's 240 groups caring for 290 sites across Hawaii. Half of them have no budget, no paid executive director, yet they are restoring fish ponds, producing food, regenerating native ecosystems, doing education. So much work. And that is a form of land coming back. And how do we grow that? How do we grow that movement and grow that capability so that it does blanket Hawaii again? We were really moved by your land acknowledgements. We were really moved by the thoughtfulness that has gone into having this program in Hawaii. We're moved by the intention. If you wonder how you can help and what you can take away, and you haven't been able to do that in the way you want, like I said, tell our story. Tell that this is a place that remains occupied and that does need, again, to be able to control who can buy land here, control how many tourists come at any time. And that does take getting out from under the United States. But in the meantime, we're doing the work. There's a great thing called the Hawaii People's Fund, which funds Hawaiian sovereignty organizations and all these groups across Hawaii. It's super grassroots and amazing. It's a place to contribute. Malia and I both have land trusts on our island that are native land trusts, buying land back, helping Hawaiian Ohana to stay where they still are in place and buying back other lands so community who's had to leave can come again. But I guess I would just say, these kipuka, wherever you are, be a kipuka, create a kipuka of justice, of, building resilience for climate change, of adaptation. Auntie, your people are the experts in fire, in fire management. And we just had those fires in Lahaina and Australia, the fires you've had, like that expertise is needed again. So, hearts and minds are going to be one. People will know. For our people, what's happening in Israel and Palestine is so shaking because that's a case of a nation imposed on another nation, both needing homelands and all calling this place home. And for our people, to stand in violence has not been our choice. To stand in resistance, to occupy, we do that. But it shows us how that reverberates around the world and how, that choice and the feeling for some that it was the only choice, what that creates and how much loss and vulnerability everywhere. So I think all we can do is stand together with greatest, deepest aloha and love for all the places that shape us and awareness of all who are struggling and ways to be hoa, ways to be friends and allies.
Auntie, we so feel you. Just know that, you remain our teachers. You really do, but we have to heal ourselves. One of my favorite teachers was Krishnamurti. They thought he was the second Christ, but he said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." So find out what is the wellness of your peoples, and then return to that in a way that heals your community. Because we have to heal first amongst ourselves. You know what I mean? We struggle so hard to fit in, and then, why? Why? So we have to wake up. So I give you that humbly, because the higher frequency of sovereignty is freedom, and freedom is ours already. When you choose, things that make sense, ideas that are beautiful, and a type of communication that heals us. Yeah, we are so with you guys. Totally. And that feminist, oh my gosh, keep going. You know what I mean? Feminism didn't do well in Hawaii because we are already, understanding the power of the feminine. But the ideas of feminist epistemology, wow, fantastic. You folks hold a cornerstone in the potential to debate mainstream scientific ideas. So figure out what that is, and because they are synergistic and they resonate with indigenous common sense. Our work in Hawaii has inevitably become holographic epistemology, because they always want us to debate dual thinking. The dual world is very important, but it's not the only world. There's dual, non-dual, and whole. And that wholeness is what we offer the planet. Is a description of that wholeness that doesn't exclude, but that is very clear of how inclusion occurs. That is very clear because we are getting clearer and clearer and clearer about our purpose in the world. So it's feminist, but it's way more than that. So, but we honor that type of clarity in a youthful society. See, we view American thinking as youthful, that's all. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a negative, it's just they're young and we just gotta help raise them. But but our own families are at phases of function and dysfunction. Let me tell you that. So my job is to heal myself. To heal in my family And in that healing, we heal others. And so Malia's comments about the beauty of Molokai, absolutely, she is dedicated to the consequence of deep thinking in situ and how that relates to law. Mehana, the beauty of what her kupuna have shared with her about the heightened consciousness of what community really means. I mean, what really means. You can feel it in her ahua. You can feel it in how she's presenting, helping us today. And this is our future. It's in the truth telling. We have to return to ho'opono. We have to return to truth. And as a haku ho'opono, the first thing in a ritualized way of healing is that people really don't know what truth telling is. We think we do, but we're so used to basically not telling the truth. We're so used to it, we don't even recognize it. So at the core of ho'oponopono, when we ritualize our healing processes, we are going for oya i'o, the absolute inside idea of truth. And that is what I think helped me heal. The inside of my truth is that I don't want to belong in this society. But I do have to participate in the ways that are productive, that are kind, that are graceful. But my work is in freedom, the frequency of freedom. And that means we didn't barter. In our work in food sovereignty, this kupuna said to me, Manu, we didn't barter. I'm like, I thought we bartered. Can you imagine, Malia, uncle going, hey, I'm giving you 3 ulu and you give me 4 moi? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't happen. We shared. And that's where the overproduction of measurement is actually gonna badger us. We didn't count what we gave you, we shared. And that frequency is about the communion, and that's ultimately old, because it cares for others. It doesn't just hoard for self.
One of our Puna taught us, you give.
So we're going to close, but Manu, frequency of freedom and the sharing, we were taught kokua. They say it's to help, but it's to give what you have when you have it to give. And if you do that, and you do that, and you do that, and everyone does that, everybody always has more than enough, and there is abundance. And we're going to close as we opened all together. So if you could just stand up. We could go on all day and we'll stay and ask questions, but we know we got to get you to lunch. Please reach up if you can to the heavens. Reach up to the mountain, Luahinevai, the top of Waikiki, and then reach to the ocean, Kalehuawehe, the surf break. Reach up again to the heavens, reach down to the earth. And then the words we will close with are E Aloha. E aloha, perfect. E aloha, goes like that all together. E aloha, e aloha, one more time. E aloha. Mahalo.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to Grant and the people back there who made all the technology work. And here's Grant. Thank you to the volunteers who are running with the microphones. And thank you to the amazing. Oh, thank you to you. Amazing. Fabulous. Make them safe.
And Malia.
Bye, Malia. Aloha Wauya oi. Love you, Malia. Oh, thank you.
I'll call you if people have